Welcome back to the show, and today, my friends, I'm going to be breaking down everything we know about the next game from Bend Studio after the developers saw fit to give us some new info on the as-of-yet unannounced title in an official PlayStation blog post. And as always, if you enjoy the episode, be sure to hit that like button, comment, subscribe to the channel, and then hit that big beautiful bell to the right, because if you don't, the almighty YouTube algorithm will continue to hide my videos from you as part of its ongoing mission to make me sad. But getting back to it, earlier this week, Bend Studio, the makers of hits such as Siphon Filter and more recently Days Gone, decided to refresh their branding and launch a new channel trailer with which to entice talented developers to join their ranks and work on their next project. Along with the shiny new logo and recruitment trailer, we also got an in-depth post on the official PlayStation blog detailing the studio's almost 30-year game development history, running from the creation of their first puzzle games from the Apple Newton in 1993 to the studio's acquisition by Sony in the year 2000, and finally, their work on Days Gone. It's a good read, lovingly put together by Bend Studios community manager Kevin McAllister, so go ahead and give that a read and give Kevin a follow on Twitter for more PlayStation goodness. But getting back to it, Bend's storied history wasn't all that was covered in the blog post. Kevin also gave us some brief but informative clues as to what we're going to get from the PlayStation Studios' next and as of yet unannounced title. More specifically, Kevin wrote, "Today we are excited to share just a snippet of news on our current project. We are currently working on a new IP that includes multiplayer and builds upon the open world systems of Days Gone, but brings you to a whole new world that we are extremely excited to craft for you. We cannot wait to reveal it to you when the time is right." Now, I'll grant you on first glance that doesn't look like a whole lot to go on, but when we break it down point by point and look at it relative to Bend's last game, Days Gone, we can actually start to get a vague idea as to what their next project is going to look like. For starters, Kevin re-emphasized that Bend is working on a brand new IP, so as much as fans like me are desperate for a Days Gone 2, we simply have to accept that that isn't going to happen until the current project has launched. That said, not all is lost, because we do know that Bend is going to be leaning heavily on their past development experiences when shaping the new IP, and that, once again to quote Kevin, it's gonna build upon the open world systems of Days Gone. Now obviously that's a pretty vague statement, but we can make some educated guesses as to what that means. For example, I think it's likely that the dynamic weather systems and global illumination that went a long way to making the post-apocalyptic Oregon environment so alive in Days Gone will be implemented in the new game. And I'm also thinking that this quote could refer to both the Horde enemy system developed for Days Gone and to an extent the drifter bike world traversal mechanic. Now, the Hordes in Days Gone were undeniably one of the greatest selling points of the game, and to this date remain one of the most terrifying experiences that I've had in gaming. They could range from anywhere between 50 to 500 freakers in strength, and their behavior was dictated by factors such as the time of day and the prevailing weather conditions. Particularly in the early game, the knowledge that you could run into one of these hordes seemingly at random left you in a constant state of tension, and it took a good deal of planning and skill to whittle them down when you finally got to the point where you could actually take them on. Now obviously the Horde Swarm mechanic worked perfectly in the context of a world overrun by zombies which were animalistic and single-minded in their overarching goal of catching up to and eating you. However, implementing this system outside of a zombie setting would be problematic to say the least, as Bend would have to conjure up an enemy for which it would make sense. I mean, no intelligent creature is going to act this way, and so the new breed of enemy would need to be feral yet distinct from the denizens of the previous game, and that's a difficult but not impossible challenge to overcome. For example, Bend could choose to give their game a sci-fi setting that takes place on a sprawling space station inhabited by hordes of invasive aliens. I mean, imagine the Flood from Halo if they behaved like the Horde from Days Gone. It would be an utterly terrifying experience and an unarguably distinct enemy from the zombies in the previous game. And on a side note there, Bend's new logo looks just a little bit futuristic, don't you think? But moving on and getting back to Earth, the protagonist's drifter bike was, in my opinion, another major strength of Days Gone. Once you got the hang of it, the bike allowed you to explore the open world with a high degree of maneuverability and absolutely book it away from danger when the need arose, which it did. In a way, it was like the Jackdaw from Assassin's Creed Black Flag, a secondary character that was heavily customizable and served as a constant companion to the protagonist throughout the adventure. Now obviously Bend isn't simply going to uproot the drifter bike and dump it entirely into their new project. They're looking to create a new universe, and so they're going to want to create some distance in terms of design. However, if they're looking to implement some of the open world systems from Days Gone, well, that suggests that you're going to need a large open world map, and in that case you're going to need a way of traversing it, and so a companion style iteration of the drifter bike could be exactly what is needed. And incidentally, we do know that Bend is planning on putting vehicles in their next game, as one of the job listings on the studio website is for a senior technical artist for weapons and vehicles. And as a side note, one of the bonus qualifications for that position is a good understanding of firearm and vehicle mechanics and engineering, which I mean is a given, but also suggests to me that this new project could have a contemporary setting, or perhaps a sci-fi one that still revolves around the current day technology involved with firearms and vehicles. But onto the next point, Big Kev also pointed out that the unannounced game is going to have a significant multiplayer element, and this could take a number of forms. We know that PlayStation is extremely keen on developing a new wave of live service games for the PS5 generation and beyond. Earlier this year in an investor call, Sony CFO Hiroki Totoki let slip that PlayStation was hoping to pump out an eye-watering 10 live service games before the end of the fiscal year ending in March 2026. Now that was said in relation to the acquisition of Bungie, the makers of the Destiny franchise. However, it shows a clear intent to move heavily on that space, and so it's not difficult to believe that Ben's next game could have some live service elements. Now, I highly doubt that the Oregon studio is going to be tasked with making the next Destiny-style game. Their pedigree is rooted more in single-player gameplay. So I think that it's more likely that the next game is either going to have a bespoke multiplayer mode or maybe drop-in, drop-out co-op for the main campaign. It's also possible that you could have a Red Dead Redemption-style live service experience which uses the map from the main game but skews everything else towards online play. Also, judging by some of the job listings on Ben's website, we know that the upcoming project is currently set to have a mixture of gunplay and melee options when it comes to combat, and that the story could feature some epic set pieces, so hardly any groundbreaking insights on that front. To be honest, the main takeaway from the Bend website and the huge number of important dev roles that are yet to be filled is the fact that the game is still in the very early stages of development, and so is subject to widespread radical change as it evolves towards launch. And on that note, I'm going to leave it there for today. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notifications bell, and be sure to keep it here for all the biggest news, reviews, and reactions from across the video gaming industry.